Okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to give everyone another minute or two to join before we get started. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the Qellus webinar, The Missing Layer in SuccessFactors Transformation. I'm Andy Hubbard, and I'll be your host today. Thanks for joining us. Today, we'll look at why SuccessFactors alone may not be enough to deliver the outcomes organizations are looking for, and how leading organizations are closing that gap and getting more value from their transformation. Next slide, please. Today's speakers will be Greg Hokamp and Steve Kraft from Qellus, who will share their insights on the topic. With that, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Greg.
Thanks, Andy. Welcome, everyone. Great to have you with us. Just a quick agenda for today. We'll start with kind of establishing what we understand to be some goals in HR. Walk through some of the pain points that HR functions tend to see. Give you our view of what true transformation really looks like in an HR function. And then give you a chance to see the solution in action. So I'll pass it to Steve here about midway through, and he'll be able to show you a little bit more about what the solution can actually do. We'll talk a little bit about how Qellus delivers those solutions, and then we'll leave some time at the end for some Q&A. So with that, we'll get started. So we wanted to start with what HR leaders are really trying to achieve. And it's really kind of three things. There's a number of things here, but really improve the employee experience. They're being asked more and more to do more with their already stretched teams, whether that's doing more in compliance or adding more capability to their HR function. And the third thing is really preparing for the future. So whether that's mergers and acquisition, organic growth, or just getting ready for AI with improved insights and AI capabilities. The challenges, though, the reality is that many times the HR processes are pretty manually intensive. Compliance tends to be kind of a heroic effort if there's a need to do audit or compliance. And a lot of that stems from the fact that HR data is not fully trustworthy. A lot of these systems in HR have grown up as best of breed systems, and it's scattered around the organization. And with that, there's also employee files that are also kind of scattered around and fragmented in the organization. And all of that sort of prevents this move to AI. And the ambitions that companies often have around AI is really outpaced by the readiness of the information they have that it needs in order to act upon. So there's actually research that supports what companies are feeling. So a Gallup research study said only 12% of employees agree that the organization does a great job of onboarding. And that's sort of testament to the fact that these processes we have in HR tend to be fairly manually intensive. A Forrester report shows that 80% of respondents have issues with reporting around these disparate systems. And that shows up in areas like compliance and audit when we're being asked to pull this data together. It's really hard when we have disparate systems that we don't trust. An AIM report talks about 58% of US enterprises have multiple unstructured data sources and knowledge bases. And again, these systems tended to grow up as best of breed. Most functions in enterprises today have lots of different systems. And that creates a little bit of a trust issue because we're never quite sure what that data is attached to, where it was originated, and how it was modified. Another Forrester report talks about 77% of employee data is stored in multiple repositories, and more importantly, 71% cannot transfer or share it. And that's just kind of goes back to these systems are not integrated. It's not easy to get a full picture, and it's not easy to get this sort of one source of truth that HR functions really need. And finally, AI is everywhere. There's a lot of application that the HR functions could use AI for. But 52% rank data quality as a top factor. The more important piece is 7 and 10 leaders cite that data silos are a major obstacle to being ready and to be able to get to an AI adoption of really successful initiatives. And taken individually, these things don't necessarily show up on the radar, right? They're small pieces, a small manual effort here, looking for a document there, second guessing whether I can trust that version of the document. But when we kind of stack them all up, they create this barrier of unresolved obstacles that really create this kind of a significant amount of friction and waste and really kind of block us from moving into the next phase of maturity and getting that next level of execution that we want in HR. So just in terms of target state, what we look at in terms of true transformation, it starts at the bottom here. Many companies are still in this phase where documents in HR are still scattered. So they live in emails or shared drives. And oftentimes it takes someone to reach out to a colleague to either find a document or confirm its authenticity or that it's the most accurate version. Some companies have moved to phase 2 where the documents are stored in a vault. Sometimes that's separate from, or most of the time it's separate from the HR systems that they're using. And people may be using it differently as well. The way I use it might be different than the way Andy uses it. And that creates sort of extra friction, effort, and some questions about how we're actually treating that. And it becomes an untrustworthy source of data. In phase 3 is where we really see transformation taking shape, right? So here we have documents are integrated with SuccessFactors. They're able to be shared across functions and roles. Nobody's really searching for documents or trusting that it's the source of truth. And at this point, operations really improve. We've started to establish a foundation for AI, and it allows companies to start thinking about phase 4, where we can start looking at having HR assistants, maybe even agents, and more importantly, that we have those that we can trust, because now it's built on data that we can rely upon. So this true transformation is really kind of anchored in 3 things. It's process transformation, where we have the documents and the content and all of the things that are happening with HR are really tied and integrated into your SuccessFactors system. They're associated with the activities you're doing every day, and it's not a separate activity to go update those documents and make sure that they're integrated. The data trustworthiness, so being able to have a bi-directional sync of this information. So if it's a resume or a policy, we know that it's tied back to, we know the year, we know the candidate name, we know other things about that piece of information that we can then stitch together as the foundation for AI enablement. So what we're really trying to do here is make sure that the process is efficient. We've got data that's linked to that process and we can trust. And then we're trying to get to a point where we can use that to really drive efficiency and AI enablement. So what's a complete approach look like? And so what we would, the solution that we're talking about today is really has three components. It's comprehensive, it's integrated, and it's compliant. So when we say comprehensive, we mean two things. From the beginning of the process in HR to the end, so from recruiting to retirement, everything that happens with that candidate and employee is all managed and controlled together. But we're also talking about comprehensive from the standpoint of the document. So from the point that document is created to the point that we have managed it and we're at the point where we want to retain it, we're managing and controlling that throughout the process. Integrated, we talked about a little bit earlier, but this is really important. So we want that stored and managed and integrated with your HR system, in this case, SuccessFactors, to make sure that we can trust it. We know it's been part of that business activity that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, and therefore we can trust that data. And then compliant. So what we're doing here is we don't want compliance to be a separate activity. We want compliance to be done automatically. And we can do that with this kind of integrated approach because we're collecting all of the information about those documents as part of that business process. So we know the year, we know the employee number, we know the country that they're employed in, we know all the things that we need to do to either retain it for the right period of time or secure it in the right manner. And our goal, again, is to streamline this entire recruit to retire process. We're trying to remove that friction and the inefficiency from manual steps, from errors in manual processes. And we're trying to get to a point where we really have no system switching. We have automated provisioning. And so Steve will talk about this a little bit later, but this concept of an employee workspace where everything is put together, and that happens automatically when you have a new candidate or you hire an employee or you have a new event. Those things happen automatically, so you don't have to think about them. And we have this dynamic synchronization. So document templates and employee records have this bidirectional sync between the source of record of the transaction within SuccessFactors and those documents that we're maintaining as well. And so content management really becomes this missing layer. And so we are trying to get to a point where we have centralized the employee record. We've embedded these documents into HR workflows. We are automatically applying governance and compliance controls to the process and when these documents are created. And ultimately, we're creating a more trustworthy information foundation for both automation and getting waste out of that process, but also to set us up for a future that includes AI. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and we'll let you see a little bit about the solution in action.
Wonderful. Thank you, Greg. I think you did a wonderful job in illustrating how that proactive management of content throughout the business process really provides the core foundation for exponential value throughout the business and enterprise. So let's go ahead and start with our demo today. We're going to start with our character here. It's going to be Tessa Walker. She's an HR manager. She's using the open text for SAP SuccessFactors, where she's going to quickly generate a contract for an employee that she's looking to hire. As you'll see, she's navigated to her homepage, where she has a series of integrated open text document management solutions right there available as a palette on our homepage. And we're navigating here to the recruitment module, where she's going to see a list of candidates, and she's going to quickly scan and find the one that she wants to hire for her digital expert role. Scans down and clicks on that and moves the candidate to the ready for hire stage, where it's going to trigger a back-end process where that employee contract is automatically going to be sent off for digital signature. So now we introduce Pauline. She's the employee that is being hired for this digital expert role. She receives an automatic notification from DocuSign or to receive and scan through this contract where she can go through, validate that it's correct, and then apply her digital signature where the contract will be automatically sent back to Tessa. Now that we were returning, let's see Walker, the HR manager, where she is now going to be able to go and view that signed contract Pauline that just signed. It's located again as Greg was alluding to a little earlier in Pauline's employee workspace. Employee workspaces are built on the OpenText platform and are fully integrated here within inside of SuccessFactors. Tessa can see the employee details as well as logged activity. She can navigate to the Documents tab, where she can now go down and find and locate the document that Pauline had signed. Then she can go down and validate that that document has been signed, where she can now move her on into the onboarding process. Employee workspaces can be configured to where you have certain required documents. In addition, notifications can be set up to highlight where missing documents, outdated documents, or those that are in process. The Documents tab uses a folder structure, as you can see, which can be fully configured to meet your company needs. You can quickly filter on documents by filtering on custom metadata or using the full text search capability in the search bar. The dossier view, as you can see, is a view of documents based upon classification. So now let's go ahead and continue back on to Pauline, where she also has an employee workspace here provided by SuccessFactors. And she's going to leverage the self-service capability where she can automatically generate an employee verification for herself without ever involving Tessa. She can also see a list of all of her personnel files and identify those files that are also, just like Tessa, that are missing, outdated, or in process. And as you can see, we can also add documents, so no longer needing to involve Tessa in that upload process. So now we're going to go ahead and fast forward in our demonstration here. Pauline has been with the company for a few years, and she has a new arrival that's coming, and she's learned to, wants to take and jump into the employee workspace. So if we go to continue with the demo, as you'll see, she is able to interact with the AI agent that's part of the employee workspace. This agent is going through and it's identifying the available balance that she has available to her within inside the SuccessFactors, but is also applying the current company approved policy to identify what matches this particular event and provides Pauline with the available balance. And that concludes today's demonstration as far as the live product. So if we would now go ahead and advance to the next slides, we can continue. So as you can see, the employee workspace is truly where the magic happens. Here, both admins and users can access or employees, should I say, should have access to a single source of truth, providing a digital twin, if you will, where the combination of metadata and documents, as Greg illustrated earlier, provides a governed, automatic, and usable usage is unlocked. Giving personalized access to information, whether it be human-driven or AI-driven. You have a single trusted source to serve as your core foundation for your content management needs. Go ahead, next slide, please. As you can see here, we have a whole list of capabilities that are underpinning these employee workspaces, which can be activated and leveraged throughout the entire process to meet your business needs. These are just a quick example, not to get into any particular detail, but just to give you the confidence that there is a plethora of capabilities that when the timing is right, we can bring to bear for you. Next slide. And then lastly, this lends its well since we have all this rich information to provide a personalized view of the same content to where now an HR professional can have access to the content and perform the actions that they would be normally performing on a day-to-day operations. The employee can access the files that they are commonly needing to access, and sometimes it can be a pain to try to track down and wait for, or they're, lessening their anxiety. And then you got the compliance officer, as we talked about earlier, now no longer has to do a Herculean effort. it's all one place and they have access to the same information. And now it's just simply being part of the process is right there at their fingertips. With that, I'll pass it back to you, Ray, to continue the webinar.
Great. Thanks, Steve. And I think, yeah, really important concept there around the business workspace, right? So we talked about this really needing this trusted source of truth, and that employee workspace becomes that sort of digital twin, as Steve said, that we can then pass around, and not only pass around, but customize. So we can secure it by these different personas as well, or as necessary for the needs of each of those personas in the organization. Okay, so we're going to switch gears here and talk just a little bit about kind of the way that Qellus can get you faster time to value. So we've done a number of these engagements, and we've noticed a few things we think we can improve upon. So sometimes there's some challenges with delivery engagements, which are the following, right? One, the SuccessFactors project alone, let's be clear, right? That is a significant effort, right? And so for stretched HR teams to try and make sure that they get that right and they have the right requirements takes a fair amount of time. We find that with the OpenText solution and content management capabilities tend to be a little bit secondary, but it's also hard for the teams to make time to learn about what capabilities OpenText can provide. And so really not having familiarity, maybe not having the time, sometimes there's an anticipation. So we have requirements maybe that are anticipatory. We're trying to work with teams that are trying to anticipate what they may need without having the full picture. And sometimes this creates a kind of a cost variability and schedule variability. And the fact is, what we find is most of what is deployed is not unique, at least in the first deployment. And so we've thought about this a little bit, and we changed the game a little. We have a package integration now where we put together what we feel are the most common features into a fixed price package. It gets about 80% of what most deployments would need to deploy. It still completes that missing layer of the HR transformation, gets you live with the things that you need in terms of process data and AI, but it really lowers the burden on HR teams to learn about OpenText, to give a set of requirements, when the reality is we can get that deployed for you much more quickly. We're looking to reduce kind of the schedule and scope creep that sometimes exists. And it doesn't mean that there's no ability to customize that down the road. What it means is we want to get you live faster, get your teams able to use the system, and then once they really understand what they need and how they would want to change the system to meet their needs better, we have really finely tuned requirements. We really understand that that's adding value to your business. And so where we may have a traditional go live that's 6 or 9 or maybe even 12 months in duration, we have created this package where we can get you live in 13 weeks. It includes most of what companies are asking for in that first phase. So the recruiting, onboarding 2.0, and EC integration, those modules are included, covers up to about 50,000 employees. And what we've included is 20 of the most common document types in the engagements that we've done. We have 5 SuccessFactors tiles and widgets that are part of this, some critical deletion and HR approval workflows. And then you would get with that all of the project methodology, including user acceptance testing, go live, and hypercare with that package. And one final piece, if you are already running SuccessFactors, so let's say you've already deployed that, you're looking at adding content management to your system, we now have the ability to take your data, compare that against best run companies, and really highlight areas where we can improve the ROI for you in certain processes. So if you're interested in that, I encourage you to talk with Andy afterwards, but kind of a neat capability that gets you some visibility into how you could change your execution specifically. Okay, so just to kind of recap here, so the missing layer in SuccessFactors is really this content layer, really making sure that while you've got SuccessFactors deployed and it's doing a great job managing the transactional layer, that we're also layering in all of the content and the documents that go with that, and building this really trusted repository of information that you're going to need to really drive true transformation and set you up for AI readiness. And the way that we're doing that, right, we're moving from this fragmented, manual, kind of inconsistent approach to document management to something where we've, again, centralized the employee record. We've got documents embedded in those workflows. We have governance and compliance controls that are happening automatically. It's not a separate thing that someone has to do. And the reporting of that becomes very straightforward, and ultimately creating this sort of trustworthy information foundation for automation and AI. And finally, this really goes back to anchoring on these three areas, right? The process transformation, getting content integrated directly into the business processes you're executing within SuccessFactors, making sure that that data is synchronized back and forth, to make sure that we know everything about that document and we can trust that it's tied to the transaction and SuccessFactors that you've been executing in your business. It goes one step further, actually, and in order to prepare for AI, what's really powerful is we also know the relationships between those things. We know relationships between candidates and resumes and employees and offer letters and employees and policies. That data trustworthiness is not just about the document, it's also about the relationships of those. And a lot of that comes from the SuccessFactors system. So having that, again, tied together with the process transformation and process integration is key. And then as companies really look to, take an example like what Steve showed, have an AI assistant or have a set of them helping employees with self-service, improving that employee experience, doing it without having to have, manual intervention or someone on the HR team helping on all of those. That requires that we've got that foundation of good data. And we can start doing some things like what Steve showed to alleviate the burden from the team and increase the employee experience. So with that, I will wrap up and I'll turn it back to you, Andy.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you to Steve for sharing your insights. Before we wrap up, though, we do want to leave some time for Q&A from the audience. So if you do have a question, please feel free to drop it in the box. It looks like we do have a couple already. I'm going to go ahead and ask them. How do I know if our HR organization has outgrown native SuccessFactor document capabilities?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that one. I think it really goes back to some of those pain points at the beginning. If there's a lot of challenge trying to locate documents, if there's issues around compliance, if there's challenges, Steve showed on that slide around the capabilities. So document generation and signatures and things like that, where we're really looking to do more in terms of workflow, and it's moving a little bit away from just getting the document stored to having true capabilities around the content that you have within HR. I think those are good indicators.
Okay, thank you, Greg. The next question we have, what does success look like 12 months after implementation?
I can take a stab at that one too. And I should mention we have Steve on the phone, but we also have Swati, our director of delivery, here. So Swati, if you have anything you want to add to that. But this one, I would say success looks like, I think people aren't looking for documents anymore, right? That these things that tend to trip up teams around the friction and the extra manual work and trying to verify the trust of documents, locate them even. I think the kind of search for documents and the verification of documents goes away in 12 months in this example or in this scenario. So success in 12 months would mean to us that you're past that point, you're really moving up that maturity scale, and you have something where you can really look at, I know with 100% confidence that that employee structure, all of the documents and everything we know about that employee has been tied to the business that we've been doing with them. It's been managed all along that transaction and the documents along with that. Um, Ideally, also looking at doing some things with AI and being able to point AI at this system and truly be able to trust the results, right? Because we know that we have the right policy. If you take Steve's example, we know we have the right policy. We know we have the right PTO balance for our employee, and we can trust that the answer that they're going to get back is based on trusted data rather than assuming that AI can sort of fix the data that we have in these disparate systems. We have something that we know we can trust.
Thank you, Greg. And yeah, thank you for mentioning, we do have Swati on the line too. So please, Swati, feel free to jump in if there's something that we're missing from some of these questions. The next question that we have here, we have a lot of AI initiatives underway right now. Why should we prioritize content management in HR first?
Well, I think since this is an HR webinar, I would say, the content management part of the AI journey is kind of the missing layer, right? The AI models really work heavily on unstructured data, which is what your documents and records and policies are. And it's going to be critical as teams go forward in that AI journey to really make sure that that foundation is strong. So I would say from that perspective, it's sort of critical to be able to progress on the AI journey. That'd be my quick answer. Steve, anything you would add to that?
Yeah, obviously with the contextualized nature, it provides a structured way in which now AI isn't guessing at the document, right? It has that ability to take and understand that it is a policy document, for example, so it knows how and where to get the right answer. So that lends to the trust factor. But more importantly, sometimes HR employees are the key value asset inside of a company, and being able to take and either accelerate hiring or overall improve the experience. I'm a former Salesforce employee, and they're very well known for their onboarding process. And I can speak from experience that they did have a very orchestrated way in which they rolled out and onboarded a new employee, and it was a little different than most. And it really did have that concierge feel to it, and it did make you feel as an employee valued, and you weren't just a number.
Good answer. Thank you both.
Sure.
One last question. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering if there's more.
Yeah, there's just one more. What are customers surprised by after implementing the solution?
I might, Swati, maybe I'll have you chime in here at the end, but I would say, honestly, oftentimes companies are starting with the compliance objective, trying to address that compliance need and making compliance around records retention and audit capabilities better. I think, and Swati, maybe you can support this with the work that you've done with some of our customers, but I think people are surprised maybe by that it does truly have an operational impact. It does make things more efficient, and that process transformation and sort of data quality really does go up, and that helps sort of relieve pressure from the teams and whether or not they've gotten to this part where they're using AI on that data or not. I think that maybe would be what I think is the most surprising part for people.
Yeah, I think I agree, Greg, on that. That's definitely one of the biggest surprise for customer. But I think a couple others I would like to mention is how much of ease of use it is, right? Like they can find everything in one place. That you cannot call that out for, in how they used to work in past. Another thing a customer had mentioned me is, before, and most of the time onboarding or recruitment is managed by a different group than the HR group. And how many times they go back and forth, well, hey, did we receive the resume? Can you send it me? Like now all this information flows to OpenText in a single content repository. So they all have access to it based on, how the security layer is set up. But so much communication is not needed between different teams because everybody can see what is available or what is not. And then the third point I would like to mention is having implemented this also kind of gives them an early visibility of upcoming tasks. They know, hey, we have this security notification or security certification is expiring for 15 employees in next 3 months. So they need to, get this done or get a newer certification or any compliance related policy updates yearly. All those system kind of gives them a heads up saying all this is expiring in next 6 months or next 2 months. So they can start working on it. So all of these, I think, adds up to once the solution is implemented, people are pleasantly surprised by, how easy it is now to do things.
Very good.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Swati, for that.
excellent.
Well, that's all that we have. So I think that's going to bring us to the end of today's session. I just want to thank everyone for joining and taking the time out of your day today. We really appreciate it. If today's discussion sparked any interest and you'd like to learn more about how Qellus can help with your SuccessFactors transformation, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is on the slide. Thank you again, everyone, for joining, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
You.